This tutorial demonstrates how to use the checklist feature to add charges to an invoice on the full screen side of iForgeAhead. The checklist feature is one of 3 different ways to add charges to an invoice, and it is especially helpful whenever you need to add multiple charges for the same horse. We're beginning in the detailed view for a new invoice, where I've already saved the header information at the top, and now am ready to add the charges to the invoice, which will appear in this grid here in the center. Of the 3 ways that you can add charges to an invoice, the first is that you can go to the action panel and click Copy Prior Invoice. That will copy all the charges from the client's most recent invoice, which is helpful if the charges are the same or basically the same as the last time you worked on those horses. If you're not using that option, you can add charges by using the plus symbol at the top right of the charges grid to add charges one at a time. Or you can return to the action panel, as we'll do here, and click on Use Checklist. Again, this feature is helpful when you need to add multiple charges for a specific horse. The header information at the top of the screen is reminding you of the client and the invoice information. And before you begin, you'll need to select the horse and verify the service date. We'll say that this horse was actually worked on yesterday by changing the date in the drop down there, and we'll select the horse here, and once that field is completed, now you'll see a list of your products and services. This list is sorted in sequence number order, and that is a field that you can control in the settings section of the program. The recommendation for using this field is to set your sequence numbers to show the most frequently used items at the top. And you can work with the sequence numbers for your products and services by going to the settings menu at the top and clicking that, and then clicking on products and services. And that's how you can control the sort for this list. Now, once we're in this list, all you have to do is click on the rows that you'd like to add charges for this horse. So we'll select a couple of them here, and you'll notice as I'm selecting charges that we have new fields appearing here for the quantity and adjustment for those items. As long as you don't need to change the quantity or the adjustment of your standard price, you can simply proceed from here by going to the bottom of the list and clicking Add Selected. That will return us to the detailed view for the invoice, and we'll now see those 2 charges added for this horse. Now, we'll continue building this invoice by going back to the checklist and selecting a different horse. This time, I'll make a couple of changes to the quantity and adjustment fields. We'll select these 3 charges, and I'm going to change the quantities here to 2 for each of these. And on this top one, I'm going to leave the quantity at 1, but change the adjustment. Now remember that the adjustment column is used whenever you want to change your standard billing rate for this particular invoice. If we enter an amount here, it will add that amount to your standard billing rate. If you want to decrease your billing rate, you simply add a negative number by typing a minus sign first, and that will take $3 off of your standard billing rate for that item. Once you have your selections complete and the quantity and adjustment fields correct, return to the bottom of the list and click Add Selected. Now we're back to the detailed view again, and we can see the new charges that we've added right here. And it did come in and bring our different quantities as well as our adjustment amount. Now of course you can continue adding charges to this invoice by returning to the checklist for different horses. You can also add more charges using the plus symbol here, which will allow you to enter one line at a time. And you can still always use the pencil symbols on any row to change any of the details for a charge, or you can use the red X to delete any of the charges for that item. Remember that at the bottom of the detailed view you'll have your subtotal for all the charges, and at the very bottom the sales tax and grand total is not calculated until you finalize the invoice. We'll go ahead and do that now and say that we don't need to make any more changes. And now this invoice is finalized and the sales tax has been calculated, which you'll see here, and a grand total, and this amount has now been added to this customer's account balance. That concludes this tutorial. Thanks for choosing iForgeAhead.